Daddy, have I told you how much I loved you?
How much, Kelly?
A whole lot.
No, I mean, how much money do you want?
When Married with Children hit Fox in April 1987, nobody expected this blue-collar family to last 11 seasons. What most fans don't know is how many times creators tried capturing that magic with spin-offs. Between 1991 and the mid-2010s, the Bundy universe spawned half a dozen forgotten sequels and pilots. Number 5, top of the heap. Fox's first real attempt at a Bundy spin-off came from Season 5, Episode 20 of the original show. This episode worked as both a regular episode and a pilot for a new series. It introduced viewers to Charlie Verducci, played by Joseph Maloney, and his son Vinnie, played by Matt LeBlanc, who would later become famous as Joey on Friends. The father and son were Chicago schemers with a simple plan: crash high society parties until Vinnie could marry a rich woman. The show kept the same DNA as Married with Children, with class resentment and dirty humor, but moved from the Bundy living room to country club environments.
This is my mom and, the troll that lives under our house.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
Al, Bud, and Kelly all appeared in cameos to help launch the new show. Even the opening theme was different, swapping out love and marriage for putting on the Ritz. Charlie Verducci had actually appeared in earlier episodes of Married with Children as Al's old friend from Chicago. The character was designed to be just as scheming and desperate as Al, but instead of selling women's shoes, he was chasing after wealthy socialites. For Matt LeBlanc, this was a huge stepping stone between small guest appearances and becoming a leading man. The show ended just in time for him to audition for Joey on Friends 3 years later. The cast also included Joey Lauren Adams, who later starred in Chasing Amy, and Leslie Jordan, who became famous on Will and Grace. The show's writing team tried to capture the working-class anger that made Married with Children so popular, but transplanting it to fancy country clubs created problems. The Bundys worked because they were stuck in their situation, while the Verduccis were actively trying to escape, which made their failures feel less relatable. Critics complained that it replaced the sharp humor of Married with Children with recycled jokes. The show also suffered from timing issues. It aired on Sunday nights at 9:30, right after America's Funniest Home Videos, which meant it was competing for a completely different audience. Ratings dropped after the second week, and Fox canceled it in May after 6 episodes. Number 4, Vinnie and Bobby. Less than a year later, Fox ordered another trial run with 7 episodes. This time they focused on Matt LeBlanc's Vinnie and gave him a new roommate named Bobby Grazzo, played by Robert Torti. The new show dropped the country club setting and Vinnie's father completely. Instead, it focused on 2 construction workers who were dumb but sweet guys looking for love in Chicago. The retool was dramatic. Gone were the schemes and social climbing. Instead, Vinnie and Bobby were just regular blue-collar guys trying to make it through their daily lives. The producers added comedian John Pinette and future stand-up comic Fred Stoller for physical comedy. Joey Lauren Adams returned as Mona, but her character was completely changed from a wealthy socialite to the neighbor who still had a crush on Vinnie. One weird feature was that episodes ended with the entire cast singing doo-wop songs together, an early 90s attempt at creating something that would go viral.
Only pizza, not the national anthem.
Only pizza? Only pizza? What if I said to you only oxygen?
The show also tried to capitalize on the popularity of buddy comedies that were big in movies at the time. Films like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure had shown that audiences loved watching 2 dim but likable guys get into trouble together. The problem was that Vinnie and Bobby didn't have the chemistry that made those movie partnerships work. Moving the show to Saturday nights was basically ratings suicide. Saturday night television was considered a graveyard slot because most of the target demographic was out doing other things. The writing staff included people who had worked on The Simpsons like Mike Scully, but the summer run ended on July 11th after just 7 episodes. Even though the show disappeared, Matt LeBlanc's career didn't. NBC executives remembered his blue-collar charm when they were casting Friends. In fact, some of the mannerisms and speech patterns that LeBlanc developed for Vinnie ended up being incorporated into Joey Tribbiani. The "how you doing" catchphrase that became Joey's signature was actually something LeBlanc had experimented with during his time on the Verducci shows. Number 3, Radio Free Tremaine. 2 seasons after the Verducci experiments failed, the producers tried something different: college life. Bud Bundy's attempts to be cool had always been a reliable storyline on the original show, so why not give him his own college radio comedy? Radio Free Tremaine appeared as episode 26 of season 9 on May 7th, 1995. The episode teamed Bud with 2 wild disc jockeys played by Eric Dane, who later became famous on Grey's Anatomy, and Andrew Kovovit from Trapper John MD. Together with Bud, they formed an underground radio trio that broadcast from the basement of their college dorm. When the new college dean, who turned out to be Steve Rhodes, tries to expel them for their unauthorized broadcasts, Marcy leads a student protest. The premise tapped into the alternative culture movement that was huge in the mid-90s. College radio stations were seen as the last bastion of authentic music, playing bands that would never get airtime on commercial radio. Shows like Beavis and Butthead had made music commentary popular with young audiences, and the producers were hoping to capture some of that energy.
And if you'd like to keep this type of programming on the air, call the station, or better yet, come down here and get in Dean Rhodes' face. April, will you take some calls for us here?
Kerry Russell, who later starred in Felicity, guest starred as Bud's love interest April Adams. The pilot tried to keep multiple Bundy characters employed. David Garrison returned as Steve Rhodes after being gone for 6 years. Even Bud's dog Buck appeared in the episode. The sets were covered with mid-90s band posters from groups like TLC, Boyz II Men, and Pantera to make the alternative radio setting feel authentic. But test audiences liked Bud, but didn't care about the unknown DJ characters. Focus groups complained that Eric Dane and Andrew Kavovit's characters felt like stereotypes rather than real people. Fox was also worried because NBC was developing their own radio station comedy called News Radio. Plus, college comedies like Saved by the Bell the college years had recently failed, making networks nervous about the entire genre. The network decided to pass on the series. Number 2. Enemies. If you can't beat them, make fun of them. NBC's Friends was dominating Thursday nights, and Fox saw an opportunity to create their own version of the successful ensemble comedy. The episode called Enemies aired on April 14, 1996 as episode 23 of season 10. It centered on a delivery guy named Tom, played by Matthew Borleghi, and a model named Shannon, played by Nicole Eggert. Their rocky romance played out at their hangout spot, George's Diner, which was clearly designed to be Fox's version of Central Perk. The concept was shameless in its imitation of Friends. The pilot featured a group of attractive 20-somethings hanging out in a coffee shop equivalent, dealing with relationship problems and career struggles. But instead of Friends' relatively wholesome humor, Enemies went for the raunchier comedy style that Married with Children was known for. The pilot's title cards, laugh track timing, and even the wardrobe colors were designed to copy Friends, but with dirtier humor. The episode was full of inside jokes aimed at Friends and NBC.
Well, my dad's gone. You can sit a little bit closer. Tom.
Kelly binge watches Friends on the show, which leads to Al's famous line that he only watches because Jennifer Aniston isn't wearing a bra. Tom's womanizing and his "how you doing" catchphrase were making fun of Joey from Friends, which was ironic since Matt LeBlanc had appeared in earlier Bundy spin-offs. The show also featured Alan Thicke as Shannon's wealthy older boyfriend, a character who was clearly meant to be a parody of the older male characters who sometimes appeared on Friends. But critics trashed the episode as a desperate attempt to appeal to younger viewers. Television reviewers complained that the show was nothing more than a crude imitation of a successful formula. The ratings barely improved over regular Married with Children episodes. Network executives worried that such an obvious Friends copy might cause legal problems. While you can't copyright a basic premise like friends hanging out in a coffee shop, the similarities between Enemies and Friends were so extensive that NBC might have had grounds for a lawsuit. The potential series died in development after the pilot episode aired. Number 1. The untitled Bud Bundy spin-off. 17 years after Married with Children ended, Sony Pictures Television announced a comeback show for David Faustino, who played Bud. Early reports describe Bud as twice divorced and broke, forcing to move back into the old Bundy house after Alan Pegg won the lottery and retired to Las Vegas. All 4 original cast members said they were interested, but deals never got finalized. The concept was designed to capitalize on the nostalgia boom that was happening in television at the time. Shows like Full House and Gilmore Girls were getting reboots, and networks were looking for proven properties that could attract both old fans and new viewers. In September 2014, entertainment magazines like Vulture, Entertainment Weekly, and The Hollywood Reporter broke the story that Sony was shopping the concept around. From 2015 to 2018, Faustino pitched it as a traditional sitcom to cable networks that wanted 90s nostalgia shows like TV Land and Pop, but the cost per episode estimates scared potential buyers away. Even though the original cast was interested, their salary demands were much higher than what cable networks typically paid.
Isn't it unprofessional for agents to date their clients?
It's very funny. Million Man March.
The production costs were also complicated by the need to recreate the original Bundy house set, which had been destroyed years earlier. Interest briefly came back between 2020 and 2022 when Sony packaged the idea with an animated Bundy reboot. The thinking was that voiceover sessions would be cheaper and easier to schedule than filming live-action episodes, but cast health issues, including Christina Applegate's multiple sclerosis diagnosis and the 2023 writer's strike, froze all momentum. Draft stories included Bud starting a knockoff shoe brand called Bundy Soul and recruiting his dad's old friends for social media marketing. Kelly would return as a life coach similar to TikTok influencers, using her unique worldview to help people with their problems. Peg would run a slot machine business in Nevada, having finally found a way to make money from her gambling addiction. Whether any of this will appear in the announced cartoon version remains unknown. Sony has been quiet about the project since the writer's strike ended, and none of the original cast members have made any recent public statements about their involvement. The project seems to be in development limbo, waiting for the right combination of financial backing and cast availability. The Bud project proves that Married with Children still has value as intellectual property, even if live-action reunions are hard to organize. Every few years, headlines announce that the Bundys are returning, and syndication ratings go up again as fans tune in hoping to see something new. From failed college radio shows to copying Friends and giving Matt LeBlanc practice for Joey, the Bundy spin-off history shows us how television networks think. Executives want familiar content but get scared when a copy looks too expensive or too similar to the original. Of these 5 projects, only Top of the Heap aired more than one night, and even that one only lasted 6 episodes. These failed spin-offs reveal an important truth. Married with Children's magic came from the exact combination of Al, Peg, Kelly, Bud, and Buck in that rundown Chicago living room. Change the formula and it completely breaks. But Hollywood still keeps trying, believing one more attempt might finally score a touchdown.